The day I found that notice, I swear it felt like someone had slipped a death certificate under my door and taped it to a fence post just to make sure I saw it. I was standing on my porch, coffee still warm in my hand, staring at this cheap yellow paper flapping in the wind like it was laughing at me. 72 hours. That's all it said. 72 hours to tear down unauthorized structures or face fines, legal action, forced removal, signed by an HOA that hadn't even existed when my grandfather drove the first post into that dirt. And, yeah, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because sometimes when something is that stupid, your brain just short circuits. You ever get that feeling like someone just tried to erase your entire life with a clipboard? That was me, standing there looking out at 12 acres of land that had been Carter soil longer than half the town had been alive. My granddad built the ranch after the war. My dad added the red barn in the 80s. I put up a greenhouse and a chicken coop last spring. Nothing fancy. Just real life. Dirt under your nails life. And now some pastel suit committee wanted it gone in 3 days. But here's the thing they didn't know. And this is where it gets good. That same week, I'd already been digging through county records for something else, long story. But I found something buried in there, something old. A lease. A 99-year lease my great-grandfather signed with the town back in 1949. $1 a year. That's what they'd been paying to use a sliver of Carter land for community recreation. You know what was sitting on that land now? Their precious clubhouse, their gym, their tennis courts, all of it. And the lease had expired 4 days before they taped that notice to my fence. So yeah, they gave me 72 hours to tear down my ranch. I gave them 30 days to start paying real rent. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because this whole mess didn't start with legal papers. It started with a rooster and lemonade and a woman who walked like the ground owed her money. Her name was Diane. Blonde bob, pastel suits, that tight little smile people wear when they think kindness is a weakness. She showed up one Saturday morning while I was fixing boards on the chicken run. Didn't say hello. Just looked around like she was inspecting a crime scene and asked, "Is that a rooster?" Billy crowed right on cue. Loud, proud, like he knew exactly what he was doing. I told her, yeah, that's a rooster. That's what ranches have. She made this little clicking noise with her tongue and started writing on a clipboard like I'd confessed to tax fraud. Said they'd received complaints, noise, smells. A horse apparently startled a child. I told her straight, I'm not in your HOA. This is private land. She froze for half a second, then smiled that tight smile again. Said they'd be keeping an eye on things. That was the moment I should have known. Because some people don't hear boundaries, they hear challenges. A few weeks later, I hosted a little fundraiser. Nothing big. Pony rides, lemonade kids running around with sticky hands and grass stains. I'd been trying to build bridges, make neighbors into neighbors. That's when I met Sarah and her daughter Abby. Kid was fighting leukemia. Bald head, shy smile, the kind of quiet that makes your chest hurt. But the second she saw the horses, man, her whole face lit up. I let her ride Daisy, my gentlest mare. Slow walk, just one lap. She giggled the whole time. Sarah cried on a bench like she'd been holding it in for months. That day reminded me why I never sold the ranch when money got tight. It wasn't just land. It was oxygen for people who needed somewhere to breathe. And then Diane showed up halfway through. No smile, no wave. Just marched over red-faced, asking about permits, insurance, zoning. I handed her proof I had coverage. Offered her lemonade, she didn't take it. 3 days later, I got a letter. Violations. Unauthorized events, structures. It was printed on HOA letterhead, not the county, not the city. That's when I knew this wasn't about rules, this was personal. After that, it escalated fast. Complaints about my bees. Someone said my goats were staring aggressively. I wish I was kidding. Then came the 72-hour notice, and that's when I went digging. Once I found that expired lease, everything changed. I drove down to the county recorder's office, dusty folders stacked higher than my patience. Cross-referenced maps, old plats, tax rolls, it all lined up. That land had reverted back to me the second the lease expired. So I hired a lawyer, filed the paperwork, and drafted a new lease. Fair market rate, triple what it used to be, even though they hadn't paid anything in decades. I hand-delivered it to Diane. You should have seen her face, hands shaking, trying to hold her phone steady while she threatened legal action. I just smiled. That calm kind of smile you only get after being pushed too far. Leaned in and told her real quiet, "You thought I was just a rancher. You should have done your homework." I could hear shouting behind the boardroom door before I even left the building. But fights like that don't stay neat. They spread, like cracks in ice. The next morning, my front gate was open. Someone snapped my welcome sign clean in half. That sign meant nothing to anyone else, but to me it was history. I didn't yell, just nailed it back up. Sometimes dignity is the loudest thing you can carry. Things got tense after that. Neighbors who used to wave started looking away. One guy practically dragged his dog past my fence like I was contagious. But not everyone turned cold. Sarah still showed up. Abby still rode Daisy. That mattered more than anything. Then came the lawsuit. The HOA accusing me of disturbing community peace. I remember reading it and laughing because it was so ridiculous, but also not laughing because lawsuits cost real money. That's when Camilla stepped in. My lawyer. Tough Sharp grew up ranching in Texas. She read the complaint and just shook her head. Said they weren't trying to win, they were trying to exhaust me, bleed me dry. And honestly, that's when I got tired. Not scared, just tired. You ever feel like you're carrying something heavy and suddenly realize it's not the weight, it's how long you've been holding it? But then something unexpected happened. A land assessor the HOA hired quietly told me my claim was solid. And whispers started. People inside the neighborhood were getting fed up. They were tired of the drama, tired of Diane turning everything into a battlefield. Then one afternoon, deputies showed up because a few board members tried pushing onto my land. That's when it hit me. This wasn't petty anymore. It was dangerous. The breaking point came when they showed up with lawyers and handed me a cease and desist order, emergency injunction, accusing me of causing distress just by existing. I remember looking past that paper at the clubhouse sitting on my land and thinking, okay, you want to play hardball? Let's play. So I posted a sign at sunrise. Big white letters. Lease expired. Access revoked until payment received. Trespassers prosecuted. They panicked. Board meetings behind closed doors. Phone calls nonstop. And then I chained the clubhouse doors. Legally. Clean. By the book. Seeing Diane scream at the police while cameras rolled, I'm not proud of how satisfying that felt. But I won't lie either. From there, it turned into a storm. News vans, social media, people picking sides. Some supported me. Others said I was tearing the community apart. That part hurt, because I never wanted a war. I just wanted to protect what was already mine. The lowest moment came when someone reported my barn to inspectors. Forced shutdown. No kids, no rides. The place went quiet overnight. I sat on the porch staring at that empty barn and felt something crack inside me, like the land itself was holding its breath. That night I walked the pasture alone, wind moving through the grass stars, cold and distant. And I realized something I wish I'd understood earlier. This wasn't about land anymore, it was about power. Some people don't want coexistence, they want control. So I went public. Full story. Documents, videos, everything. Once the truth got out, the tide turned. People saw what was happening. Saw Abby feeding carrots to Daisy. Saw the lies unravel. But Diane didn't stop. Fake repossession trucks. Threats. Even arson. Someone burned my tool shed. I can still smell it if I think about it too long. Melted plastic. Wet ash. Standing there at dawn with a hose in my hands, I knew this had gone too far. The sheriff called it arson. That word sticks with you. It makes everything real in a way arguments never do. After that, something shifted in me. Not anger, clarity. I wasn't fighting alone anymore. Neighbors started showing up. People who'd stayed quiet before finally spoke. Signed petitions, shared stories about fines and threats and bullying. We forced a recall vote. And when the results came in 76% voted Diane out, I just sat there in silence. Not cheering, not celebrating, just breathing, like I'd been underwater and finally reached the surface. But karma doesn't come in neat endings, it comes in waves. There were more legal scares. One last land claim. One more attempt to bankrupt me with fake rent bills. But by then, the truth was too loud to bury. Emails surfaced. Evidence piled up. The community stood up. In the end, the courts ruled in my favor. Not just on the land, on everything. Damages, dismissed claims, the whole mess collapsed under its own weight. And here's the part that stays with me the most. It wasn't the courtroom, it wasn't the headlines. It was walking out into that parking lot and seeing Abby standing there holding a drawing. A horse, a red barn, a crooked little stick figure in a cowboy hat. She ran up and hugged my leg and said, "You saved it." And I remember kneeling down and telling her, "No, kiddo, we saved it." These days, the ranch looks different. Not bigger, not fancier, just fuller. The garden's back, the barn's open every weekend. Kids laughing, chickens still loud as ever. Billy the rooster screaming like he pays the mortgage. And sometimes I think about that yellow notice, that flimsy paper that tried to compress generations into 72 hours. And I realize something that might sound simple, but it took me 40 years to understand. Land isn't just dirt, it's memory, it's mornings, it's people showing up when it matters. And power. Real power isn't loud. It's the quiet kind that grows when people stop being afraid at the same time. So yeah, that's my story. One ranch, one HOA, one long ugly fight that somehow turned into something better than what I started with. But I'll leave you with this, and I really want to hear what you think. If someone tried to erase something your family built, would you walk away and protect your peace, or stand your ground and risk everything to keep it? And if you've ever faced a moment like that where doing the right thing meant doing the hard thing, I'd love to hear it. Because chances are you're not the only one who's been there.